to talk about policies in the department that appear to be headed toward limiting access to fresh white potatoes within our federal nutrition programs. Let me concede a certain bias here. I grew up in northern Maine, and my first job was picking potatoes on a farm during the school recess for a couple of years when I was very, very young. So I do want to talk about the fact that the white potato is the only vegetable excluded from the WIC approved food list, and the department is proposing to place strict limits on the use of potatoes for the national school breakfast and lunch programs. So I have a visual aid here that I want to use to illustrate my point, because if you compare the nutritional content of iceberg lettuce, which is on the WIC list and is not proposed for limitations for the school lunch or breakfast program, with that of the fresh Maine potato, there is quite a difference. For example, one medium white potato has nearly twice as much vitamin C as this entire head of iceberg lettuce. Per serving, potatoes contain more than 4 times the potassium as iceberg lettuce, and more potassium than bananas, a fruit that we think of when it comes to potassium. Per serving, potatoes contain twice as much dietary fiber as the iceberg lettuce, and 3 times as much iron than iceberg lettuce, which we know is so important to pregnant women. So my question, Mr. Secretary, is what does the department have against potatoes?
Absolutely nothing, Senator. You know, the reality is that when you take a look at the WIC program, it is absolutely supplementing the purchases by the mom or the dad that's using the WIC program. And what we know from research is that moms and dads understand what you have outlined, which is the significant nutritional value and the dollar value of purchasing potatoes. And for that reason, they are already purchasing potatoes in great quantity. So what the WIC program is doing is it's essentially supplementing those potato purchases with purchases of other vegetables that are not normally purchased or not purchased in the quantity that potatoes are purchased. So in other words, it's not discriminating against potatoes, it's recognizing that potatoes are already being purchased by WIC recipients. As it relates to the school breakfast and school lunch program, you know, we are working, I had a meeting with the Potato Council just recently, and we're willing to take a look at opportunities to look at potato consumption in the school breakfast and school lunch program. What we want to do is obviously move away from the fried nature of what most schools are preparing. That's essentially the equipment that they have. We obviously want to take a look at ways in which we might be able to provide other alternatives for producing those potatoes so that they are not as high in caloric content and fat content, because as you know, we're trying to deal with a significant obesity issue. So it's not the potato, it's the way in which the potatoes are being produced or being provided.
Well, thank you, Mr. Secretary. I hope you will take a look at that. I would suggest, since my time has expired, that the government sends a signal when it lists every other vegetable except the potato for the WIC program, and when it proposes to limit the use of potatoes in the school lunch or breakfast program. And that signal can be perceived as a negative one. I know that's not your intent, but it can be perceived as saying that potatoes are not healthy, when in fact, when we do that comparison, and I have nothing against iceberg lettuce.
I value in vitamin K, by the way, that head of lettuce.
I'm sorry?
It's a high-value vitamin K.
Okay, yes, but when you compare it with fiber, C, potassium, it doesn't stack up. I'm not saying this should be banned. I'm saying that neither should this be. So I do appreciate the fact that you're willing to work with the industry about what you would perceive as more helpful ways of preparing the potato. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Collins.